Welcome back, watch people, and it's a very warm and somewhat overdue welcome to a very dear friend of this channel. It's Jonathan from Edinburgh Watch Company, who today is going to be offering us some very sound watch buying and selling advice. Jonathan, good afternoon. Firstly, mate, long time no see. What have you been up to?
Yes, well, very good afternoon to you too, and also to all the viewers. It has been a really, really long time, and as always, it's lovely to be back on show. I think some of our viewers like the old guys having a chat, but no, all is well up here in Edinburgh. It's winter certainly arrived. It's been absolutely jucking it down.
Yeah, same here, mate. I'm surprised the wig's still sitting on.
No, all's good. All's very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely, lovely to hear. Now, look, Jonathan, we're going to get into some pretty serious topics today. Now, look, first of all, yesterday I did a video with Spencer from BQ Watches, asking him for his professional, honest advice on the buying and selling situation right now, particularly as we approach the end of the year and heading into 2024. And I'm going to be asking your take on what you believe to be the best watches to be buying and selling right now, what offers the best value for money. And then later on, I am going to be asking you about something that took place that had a big effect on you, the robbery. Thank you for agreeing to talk about that a little bit more in depth later on in the show. We're going to be talking about one or two other things as well. But first of all, we're heading towards the end of the year. Traditionally, a very busy time for us watch dealers, or former watch dealers in this case. How's things for you? What's the market looking like?
I think, to be upfront, this year has definitely been quieter than the last 2 years. I think majority of watch dealers around the world, did very, very well through this awful situation that we had. And so it's a, reality check now. Things are beginning to settle down, but I think as long as you are prepared for that, and you're careful in what you're doing, and the advice that you're giving customers, then we can cope with it. So yeah, the year has definitely been a bit slower, but it's by no means doom and gloom. It's just that we are in a recession, and we know that people, their mortgages have gone through the roof, their finance rates have gone through the roof, their utility costs have gone through the roof, and now we've got, sadly, another war being added on to the existing situation. So it's really pretty tough out there, and I guess we're all in the same boat at different levels, and people are now, I guess, just prioritizing where they spend their money. Do they need 2 or 3 watches? And even those that are, I think, are now, the ballers there that had a lot of money to throw around and were spending tens of thousands over lists to get their APs and the Pateks and the top-end Rolexes, very, very rarely hear from them. Now, maybe the guys who are specializing in that market do see a bit of it, but I'm not seeing these inquiries coming in. And what's more, we're probably, we're getting offered some of these watches as well.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, Jonathan, about them all. I mean, I've got a family member whose mortgage went up from £294 a month to £1,150 a month in one hit. That's a big hit. But you mentioned a good term there. What does it look like? What does it look like for you at the moment, this market change? How have you prepared for this?
I'm not a big dealer. And, the conversation that you have with Spencer, I think, will be in ways quite informative, in that the volume of watches he buys and sells, the volume of customers he's talked to, would probably be more accurate compared to someone like Watchfinder. I guess I'm more of a medium-sized dealer, but I do talk still to a lot of people, and a lot of people in business as well, and get a feel of what it's just like there in general. I would say, by means of inquiries I'm getting, probably 8 to 9 out of 10 of inquiries I'm getting from people over the phone or email are looking to sell.
Yeah. I think that's quite, I think that's the same across the board, Jonathan, to be fair. But it's good. Look, you're being open and honest about it, and I think that's very admirable.
Yeah. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to support people who would like to sell their watches, and for those who would love to buy, we will try to have a beautiful collection of watches. And why are they selling? Just whatever the circumstances may be that they need that money for, and we're here to try and help them. However, prices have come back, and I would say 90% of people realize that, and they're realistic about what their watches are going to be worth. Sadly, there are going to be some people out there who have bought watches at the top of the market looking to sell now. Is going to be a bit of a gap to what it's really worth, but you can only make an offer, and we're probably not going to be too far apart from everybody else, so we will try that. But the good thing is, with the price of watches now coming down, they are more affordable and there are more available. And, you know, listening to your video the other day, we're even starting to see them creeping into dealers, not necessarily on the shelf for sale, but from having nothing in stock, you know, they're coming up from under the counter.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we have to be careful of as dealers too, because, you know, we're being offered date justs, pretty standard date justs, and people expecting to get money back for them. Now, that is fair a year ago, but not now, because the buyers out there are getting them fairly easily, and they're just not going to want to pay the premium on it. Now, typically, these watches that they're getting, they are flipping for the reasons we all know, to try and help them get a better watch. Well, that's fine. But if it's helping you get a Submariner, you can buy £2,000 or £3,000 less than what I'm selling it for, then maybe you need to take a little bit of a drop with it. And again, it's having that sort of sensible conversation. But as I say, the upside is I'm getting the chance to buy a lot of beautiful watches. And this week alone, you know, I bought a Sprite, a Pepsi, a James Cameron, the new model, beautiful blue date just, some Submariners. And we sold a Daytona ceramic yesterday for under £20,000. So,
nice. So that's dropped back considerably, isn't it? How are you, Jonathan? It's a question that I asked Spencer, and I think it's always a good one to ask you guys who are, you know, very active in the watch market. How are you managing your clients' expectations when it comes to, say, selling a watch that they paid way over the top for 12, 15 months ago, and they're looking to sell now? How do you manage their expectations? Because there's some really the negotiations and the explanations have to be very subtle, don't they?
I think that's a great question. The watch is worth what it's worth, but it's how you handle that conversation. For me, it's not about selling somebody a watch or buying a watch from them. What I will try to do is to spend a little bit of time in understanding that customer's situation. Why are they selling? Without being nosy, that is, you know, why are they selling the watch? Is it something they need to sell now because they've got to pay for this? Or is it something that they're exploring selling now just to see what they can get? And therefore, if you don't have to sell it now, this may not be the right time. But equally, I can't honestly say the way the market's going to go. And if I knew the way the market's going to go, I wouldn't be doing what I'd be doing. I'll be a financial analyst doing something else. But we can only make best guesses from what we read and what we hear. Is it likely to go a little bit softer? It could do. But more unlikely, is it going to shoot back up again to where it's been? Well, I think I can fairly safely say no. Because until all these things we spoke about earlier change, and the mood and the finances are there, that it's never going to get back up. Don't say never, highly unlikely in the short term. So therefore, that's that conversation to say, do you need to sell it now or not? I think the other thing too is that we've been very spoilt with watches in the last few years. The desire for luxury watches has gone through the roof from when you were doing it, Paul. The amount of people now wanting watches, spending their hard-earned money on watches, building a collection, taking an interest, and probably largely down to the amount of social media and YouTube and just interest. They just love watches. Well, they're just lovely things to hold in your hand. They don't need to put in the garage. They're just easy. And therefore, there's a massive interest in them.
Can I just say, Jonathan, sorry cutting across you there, but I love your ethos. And do you know something? It makes me tingle when you talk about speaking to your customers and asking about their needs, because it's exactly the way that I used to love to work. It's not just about buying and selling. You are so right in what you say. It's about nurturing your customers, finding out what they need, seeing how you can help them in the short term, because long term, if you take care of these guys and give them the right advice, you've gained yourself a long-term customer, right? And when you say, do you need to sell now? Just like me, I know that you have shot yourself in the foot in some times when you've turned down a watch that you could buy, but actually you're giving the customer better advice and saying, do you know what? Now's not the right time. Hold on to it. Don't sell it just yet. I got to say, mate, I love that. I really love it.
That's the way I would like to be dealt with.
100%.
With my business, you don't get much choice. You just get me. But I will generally give as much reasonable time as I can having a chat with someone, and I might not get the chance to buy the watch. But bottom line, if they put that phone down and thought, that was really helpful, he's a nice chap, he will tell family, friends, colleagues, come back to me one day, that's good enough for me. And if it's free advice, fine, but it's worth it. And so I think, first of all, to answer your question, is having a conversation, trying to understand, is this the right thing, right time for them? And then looking at what the options are. You know, are there other alternatives to selling this watch and just keeping it or not? Maybe they've explored all the other options. They just need that money now.
Yeah.
It's then a matter of saying, well, look, this is what I think it's worth. Now, I'm not going to get into the debate about consignment, except that I wouldn't say I never do it. And if I do it, it's normally because it's an existing customer we're just trying to help. But generally, it's not what I do. I just buy them. I own them. I buy them at a price that I know if I ever had to, I could get out of them, albeit I don't think I've ever traded a watch in that way. And I'll just try and buy it right. And that is just my approach. And that customer may, and quite rightly, be having that conversation with a number of dealers. And through talking to 2 or 3 dealers, they will get a feel. But the important thing that I think comes from that then is choosing which dealer you're going to deal with. And that's something that I say so often to customers. You're putting your trust in me, and I appreciate that. But take time and look into the dealer that you're dealing with. Yeah. Look into their reputation, their finances, their website. How did you feel on that conversation? Because you're about to send them your £12,000 watch without being paid for it. Yeah. It's getting that bit right. Because if that customer who needs to sell that watch, who then sends it to you and things start to go wrong, his situation has got double, triply worse than it was.
It becomes a complete disaster. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a good subject, Jonathan. I mean, look, you know, you've probably seen the videos that I've made about consignment in the past, and we won't delve deeply into it. But look, I remain a fan of consignment if you're dealing with the right person, and that is. You know, I can't emphasize enough that consignment for me is still probably one of the best ways of getting the top price for your watch, but it's also one of the ways that you can get absolutely nothing for it if you don't do your due diligence properly. That's my view on it. I don't know if you saw the video that I did about authorized dealers, and it sounds like you did actually, about the exhibition only module that's been going on now for far too long. How do you feel about this now? Do you think that this exhibition only module is going to continue? Do you see it as being something that's genuine? I'd like to get your take on, or is it just hype? What's your view on it?
I thought about that the other day, actually, listening to your videos, seeing more watches coming through now. We know that Rolex have increased their productivity by 25% with their new facility. They still don't seem to be able to make enough watches for the market demand. And I think it's much better for a manufacturer to have less product, more demand, than having lots of watches sitting on the shelf.
For sure.
If a strategy director at Rolex said, right, dealers around the world, release your stock, all your displayed models are now for sale, go and sell them, they would go very quickly, but they couldn't replace them.
Yeah.
And therefore, imagine having a car showroom with no cars in the showroom. At least what they have is a nice showcase of watches showing the models that are available. I think it's once that customer has walked into the showroom, it's that middle bit as to how they're dealt with. how they're felt valued, courtesy, interest, all that part that I don't think they're still getting right yet. And I can see it from both sides. It must be very frustrating to be a salesman in a Rolex store.
Absolutely.
People in a day only to tell them we've got nothing to give you. And I sympathize with that. But that is the way that it is. And I think as long as the customer's inquiries are handled well, the difficulty is, though, it's a bit like with cars now. You can't go and order a Range Rover and be told when you're going to get it, because Range Rover dealers no longer, from what I believe, can give you that date. They put the order in the system and the manufacturer then decides when that car is going to come, and you can be waiting a long, long time. And likewise, while Rolex dealers know they're going to get an allocation, they should get certain models, they cannot give a robust date to when that watch is going to come. So I don't think there's a solution yet to fix that, and therefore I think the display will continue. And I suspect that, I think what's also happening now, so I'm being offered Deep Seas, Sea Dweller 50th anniversaries, lots of Datejust. Why? Because these watches are coming through and they're calling their customers saying that your watch is here. And the customers said, I'm sorry, but timing's not right now. And you multiply that by hundreds, and it's happening globally. And that's why these watches are becoming available, and hence why the prices have come down. And that's something, you know, one of the questions you asked me earlier about watches to buy, watches to think about buying, I think that's probably segues quite nicely into that, because a customer can no longer just walk into a Rolex store and buy a watch and get out of it and get their money back. They're just going to have to be a bit more considered in what they're buying. And probably let's just go back to watches in the first place. Why are people buying watches? Those that want to make money on them. Okay, that's a natural human instinct to make money. But it'd be lovely to think that one day people can actually go back and go into stores and buy watches. It's because that's the watch they want. It's the watch they want to wear and to enjoy for the rest of their life and pass it on to their next generation. And it would be lovely just to sort of get back to that place.
I think one of the issues that I've had, Jonathan, for a long time with the exhibition only module, and I'll give you a perfect example. Just last week, I was in an authorised dealer that will remain nameless, big display, and they had Longines in there marked as exhibition only, and other similar brands marked as exhibition only or for display only. And I'm sorry, I just don't go along with that. That for me is good old fashioned BS. But look, it is what it is. I get what you're saying. And I agree with most of what you're saying. I definitely agree that the ADs have a hard job. But I think the point that you made that was very pertinent was the bit in the middle, where they're managed by the people in the authorised dealers and how their expectations and how their AD experience, if you like, is perceived, I think is the part that they're perhaps not getting quite right.
I think you think about it, you walk into a Rolex dealer. Now, not everybody's a watch person, but someone might have had a promotion at work. They have the finances and they've always wanted a Rolex. So they don't know all the stuff that you and I know and all our viewers know about the market. They just want a Rolex.
Yeah.
And so when they get dealt with it in that way, it must seem very, very strange.
Comes a bit of a shock, yeah.
And then they'll go and badmouth them about the occasion. I think where Rolex can play a better part is somehow staying engaged with those inquiries that come in. They'll have fancy customer relationship management systems to stay in touch, invite them in for drinks, invite them in for launches, stay in touch with them, make them feel valued. And once they bought that watch as well, stay in touch with them, because if they're not, then they'll come to me and sell the watch, or they'll go somewhere else.
Exactly. I couldn't agree. Jonathan, I couldn't agree more. I mean, what you're saying makes total sense. And this was one of my messages the other day in my video. And maybe I didn't put it over right, but I think they just need to get into the 21st century and become a little bit more Apple-like, if you like, a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit less staid and stuffy. And look, how about talking to the community? That would be nice, wouldn't it? I mean, what an amazing move forward that would be is if, and I'm not talking about me now. Let's talk about someone with a far better accent and looks, someone like you, Jonathan. You know, why can't Rolex come along and invite Jonathan from Edinburgh Watch Company and give him a day at St James's Square and let him publish it, and let's see some real customer care and interaction with the community. Jonathan, let me move you on to the main topic, really, which was going to be the main topic. Best watches to buy right now as we head towards the end of the year, heading into 2024. Someone comes to you, I'll ask you the same question that I asked Spencer. They got, let's say, 10 grand to spend, 15 maybe. Where do you think they're best putting their money right now?
I think the Rolex Datejust 41 to me is still a fabulous looking watch for the money. It's not going to make money unless it's one of the desirable dials, but it is something that is not going to be impossible to get. It is a watch that has the very latest movement. It has a fantastic range of dials. You can have smooth, you can have fluted, you can have oyster, you can have jubilee. It's a watch that sits beautifully on the wrist and tells great time, and you can swim with it, do everything you possibly want for it. And I think it's eroded into the sports market because you can't get the sports watches.
Yeah.
So something that you've got a realistic chance of getting, then I think a Datejust 41 or a 36 if that's a smaller wrist. But let's not forget our ladies as well. The 31mm Datejust, a very, very hard watch to get. And again, lovely collection there. Let's actually go back a little bit less money, because I think one of the most finest looking watches in the range is the Oyster Perpetual. I mean, for a watch that's under £6,000 as a 41mm with a beautiful range of dials, that's very understated, has all the quality of the rest of the watches, I think that's a super watch to get. And again, thinking about your money, you're only putting sub £6,000 into it. So you're not sinking a lot of money into it. No, it's not going to go massively up in value, but it's not got a massive amount to drop as well if the market were to turn. Yeah. So there are two examples that are realistic and reasonably available. Regarding the sport range of watches, again, it depends on what you want. I think the chat that we're all hearing now about the Pepsi, with the challenges that Rolex are having regarding the merging of the two colors. Now, I only go on hearsay, and what I see and what I hear other people talking about. Do I factually know they're having problems? No, I don't, but it's what I've read and what I believe. Yeah. But that probably has pushed the price up a bit, because if we are going to be making less of them, then even more desirable. I love the Rolex Pepsi. I've had old ones, new ones. I actually bought one this week on an Oyster. I think that's a great watch. I think I'll be asking probably about 15.5 for it, there and thereabouts, which I don't think is unreasonable. It's a 2022 watch. I think that's a super watch. It really is. It looks, the colors work so well. It's really comfortable to wear, sporty on an Oyster bracelet. You hardly know you're wearing. It's lovely and slim on the wrist. And I just love the Pepsi. Yeah. I think the Sprite, again, we don't know how long they're going to make this watch for. It's a bit unusual. And I think that's probably, again, prices have come down. I'd probably be about 16.5 for that watch, but I think they're about right. It's a 2023 watch. And again, these watches were well over 20,000 not long ago. So fairly limited, hard watch to get, and probably not a bad one to go for. But if I think back to my first Rolex that I bought when I was 23 years old for £800, and I'll be upfront, I didn't have £800, but I had the deposit. And I put my £80 down and I bought that Submariner date. There was another watch in the window called a Rolex Sea Dweller. I didn't get that. I kind of, it's not even got a magnification on the date, and it's a bit thicker and it's more expensive. I didn't buy it. Well, there we are. The Submariner is what I wanted. And it's why it's such a popular watch today. It's just timeless. It's like a 911 Carrera. You can wear it with any outfit and it's still a great watch. Now, whether you prefer it with a date, without a date, whether you prefer a bit of color with the sort of Starbucks one, they're a really good watch, and they'll never go out of fashion. At 41mm, they're not too big, they're not too small. So I guess Rolex sports watches, don't expect to go in and buy them off the shelf. Look at it as a journey. You might get lucky. Go and be nice to that Rolex dealer. have a conversation, invest in them like they should be investing in you, and you never know what might come up.
Yeah.
I think just
I think the Yacht Masters are coming through. So, you know, it's Yacht Masters, you know, the odd Air King, etc., are coming through straight out the shop.
Yeah, they are. I've got a new blue one and I've got a grey one. I love the Yacht Master. I think it's a beautiful watch, and they've made so many variations of it now. I think the 40mm blue one with the red hand on it is one of the best looking watches they do. However, they are more available and they're not going to hold their money as well. And if the financial side of it is more important, and you know you're tasked with, well, I've been offered which one, I would say buy the one you like and worry about the money later. But yeah, the Yacht Masters are great. And as I say, the Daytonas have come back in price a bit too. So we've talked about Rolex because we both know, Paul, the people watching this, 95% are interested in Rolex.
Yeah.
But if you step aside briefly from that, I know you've been to some of the shows around the country, some of the micro brands, some of the watches that are coming out now.
Amazing.
And I wouldn't call Christopher Ward a micro brand, but my God, they can make a nice watch. They really have got some absolute crackers out there. And I go back to my point earlier, you don't have to go and spend 10 grand. You might go and spend 1 or 2 grand, buy 2 or 3 of them, and you'll get just as much fun.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, I'm wearing a Duckworth Prestex myself today at Belmont, which I've actually really fell in love with. And, you know, look, we're doing everything we can here, at least, to help promote all of the British watch brands. You know, Zero West are my favourite. Love those guys. We're currently talking with Bremont. You know, we're trying to fly the flag, Jonathan. But you know, you're right. Some of the micro brands are doing an amazing job. Also, I've got to give Tudor a shout as well. I think I think they've done an amazing job.
I love Tudor watches. I think they're really good.
Too, yeah.
I have to be upfront and saying they're sticking now. You know, I've got
from a sales viewpoint. They're not okay.
Tudor chronograph, the white one. I've had that for some time. I've also got the new GMT that came out with the white dial. Yes, I'm asking over lists for them because I had to pay list for them. But they are sticking, and I'm not really buying any more just now. I think that probably the hottest one just now is that new FXD, like the Red Bull chronograph one.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty scarce and they're worth buying. It's interesting you talking about Bremont, because I see you're wearing a fairly colourful watch today. The one I've got is a little bit more understated, and I'm not sure whether the cam will pick it up. But
yeah, that's picking it up. Lovely. Yeah,
it's actually a Bremont, and it's a Bremont Codebreaker. And it's probably one of the finest watches they brought out. It's a chronograph with a flyback mechanism in it. And I think at the time it was about £12,000. And of course, they're all sold out now. But because I've sold a few of these, people Google them and they found that I've sold them and they get in touch. So I get the chance to buy them back. But this one hasn't quite hit the website yet. It's quite a nice one to.
You fell in love with that one, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so. I love what Bremont have done. Of course, the Codebreaker is all about, you know, Alan Turing breaking the code, and there's very, very special parts built into it. And I think I think Bremont have done a really good job, actually.
Jonathan, I'll tell you a little secret, because I know no one's watching, right? I was at a wedding reception on Saturday, and there was about 150 members of, let's just say, elite parts of the British military and also of the Metropolitan Police, and organisations above that. So you get where I'm going with it. A lot of those guys were wearing special edition Bremonts, and a lot of them had some very, very interesting stories, some of which I'm trying to convince to come on the channel and tell us the stories. But because of the jobs that they do or have retired from, they're very, very private people. But if we can get them on, they got some wonderful stories to tell.
As I say, Paul, my story won't even get close to the exciting stories they have. But I'll tell you, if I may, very briefly, a very quick story with my Codebreaker. The first Codebreaker I sold is the most beautiful watch. It comes in lovely leather packaging, and you have a choice of straps, and you have the pencils like they'd use in the war. And it had a Zippo brass lighter in it. So I sold this watch. There's a chap who wants to buy a Rolex, but we started to talk about the Bremont. He changed his mind and bought the Bremont. So I posted the watch to him and I went off on holiday. And of course, I called him the next day to ask whether his watch had arrived, and it hadn't. And we use that expression, I'm pulling my hair out. Well, it was worse than that. He said, my wife is pulling my hair out because I've just spent all this money with you and I've not got my watch. And I'd gone far away on holiday and he hadn't got his watch. I then went into the post office system to see where the watch was. And it was in Ireland and it had been held up as dangerous goods.
Oh.
And I thought, well, what's gone on? What's happened? And I realized that I'd sent this package that included a lighter. The Royal Mail had scanned it, taken it off to Ireland, and held the watch. And I thought, well, what do you do? So there I am, miles away on holiday. He's having his hair pulled out. I speak to Bremont. I say, help, what can we do? Have you got any more lighters? How do we get this watch back? And eventually I got through to someone that saw sense and they got him his watch. And there's my brief story.
All's well that ends well.
Absolutely. So the person that buys this Bremont, they're coming to pick it up. It's getting posted nowhere.
Lovely. Jonathan, look, I want to speak to you about something that I know you find quite difficult, and for good reasons. I mean, look, let's just go back to the last London Watch Show that we was both at, if you don't mind. We all know that you had a parcel of watches, let's just put it that way. You had a parcel of watches stolen from you. And the number one thing when anyone, or when I meet people at events, they often say to me, because you're someone that people in the community care about, and they say, Paul, have you seen Jonathan? How's he getting on now? Did he ever get his watches back? What happened after the robbery, etc.? You know, it's been a couple of years probably now. What can you tell us, Jonathan?
Well, you talk about a parcel of watches. Let's bring that to life. There were 29 watches with a retail value of nearly £450,000 that were stolen.
Wow.
In a safe room at the London Watch Show before the show had started. There were 82 dealers there with probably 200 million of stock. And I was the only guy that had their watches taken. So that one it's quite a difficult one to deal with. You think, well, why me? Well, I don't know. And I don't know who took them. Maybe we'll never know.
Do you think you was targeted deliberately, Jonathan?
Probably.
That's my feeling.
I ask people, they say, why me? And they say, well, you're a decent guy. You're an honest guy. They'll probably think you'll claim on your insurance and you'll just not be a problem. However, it happened. It won't be forgotten, but you have to, at least I try to look at these things with a positive outlook on it. The love from the watch community was incredible. I'll tell you 2 stories here that I may have mentioned before. A dealer in Glasgow, Rob the jeweler. I've never dealt with him before. I've heard of him, very successful dealer. He phoned me up a couple of days after that show. He'd heard about it. And he sympathized with what had gone on. And he said, Jonathan, I want you to go onto my website. I want you to choose any watch you want. I will have them personally brought through to you. You put them on your website, and when they're sold, you send me the money.
Very nice. Yeah.
Very nice. That was from the trade, a guy I've never dealt with. And somebody else who I won't mention his name, you know who he is. He wanted to send me 10 grand just to keep me going.
Yeah.
Didn't want it back. There's some lovely people out there. And that's what I'd take from it. And that's forgetting. That's not forgetting. Probably 700 or 800 phone calls and emails from customers. I'll sell you my watch back. I'll help you. Other dealers. So that's my memory of it. You
was overwhelmed with love, wasn't you?
Yeah, I was, and I still am. Even when I talk about it, I sometimes feel myself welling up a bit about it because it could have broken me. It could have broken many businesses to have that was 75% of my stock.
Yeah.
I was with TH Marsh, my insurers. They were very good. Everything I do is boxed, papered, perfect. I have all the documentation. They're all paid by bank transfer. We have 2 forms of ID. Everything is done by the book as it should be. And when it came to a claim, that certainly helped. You know, and the insurers they've got a job to do. They need to be thorough about it, but they did their bit. They were very fair to me, and we moved on. Yes,
they're the best, aren't they? They're the best. Let's be honest. They're the best.
I can only go on my experience. And you know what? When something like that happens, you can be absolutely hammered. You know, your insurance can go through the roof. They didn't do that to me, Paul. Yes, there was a premium, but they said it's only for this year, and you have a clean year, and we'll bring it back down. So I have full of praise for them. So what happened shouldn't have happened. I feel quite let down by that. But we move on. And yeah, I think that's sort of my take on it, really. So it's just happened, you know.
The big question that a lot of people ask me is, did you get paid out?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you got paid. They're always asking. And the other question is, did you ever get any of the watches back? But the obvious answer to that is no, because even if you did now, they'd be the property of the insurance company.
I have. I got excited a couple of times because I was notified by the watch register that a couple of the watches had been
flagged up.
Yeah. However, I think and I expect that it would have been the criminal fraternity really seeing, is this watch, as an example, on the watch register?
Is it out there? Yeah.
And another one was flagged up recently as well, but I've never heard anything more about it. And yeah, they are the property of the insurer now. So yeah, that's the way that thing's gone. But
one thing I would like to ask you, because again, it's something I know we touched on it briefly before, but I would actually like to clarify this. A lot of people gave me a little bit of stick for not talking about it as much as they wanted me to at the time. I know you've done it before, but can you just clarify for people why I didn't have a lot to say about it at the
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you asked me and I said, Paul, it's not the right time. Myself and my family this was a fairly major impact and a thing to deal with. My best interest is keeping my head up high, keeping the business going, talking to my customers who kindly asked how I was doing, working with my insurance and following all the processes they want me to do to ensure I get my money back.
Exactly.
Not saying something defamatory on YouTube. My drama doesn't need to be publicized for others in that perspective.
For their entertainment.
No, it's not. It's a very personal thing to go through, and anybody who's been, impacted in that way, whether it's for a robbery at home or a violence or something like that, they've got quite a lot to deal with. I'm very lucky that neither I or my colleagues who were working with me got hurt. That's actually the most important thing.
Yeah.
These are just watches and it's just money. I didn't get hurt. I have to admit, I had another 2 big shows that year that I was going to do, and I thought, no, I'm not doing this anymore. But then I thought to myself, no, don't be beaten by what someone's done. It's not your fault. You've done everything right.
Yeah.
And I did the show, and the shows were very successful, and it was lovely just to have that faith to be back out in the community and doing these things. Paul, it's just life. It's just what happens.
Absolutely, mate. We've all been there. You're a proper watch dealer now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you've had it a lot worse than I am. So thank you for asking. And yeah, hopefully that, gets some clarity. It was just all about timing and that's really, how it all went.
Yeah, that's good to hear, mate. It's good to see that you bounced back. I think we all knew that you would. And believe me, no one wanted to talk about it and help you more than I did, but I respected your wishes, because your wishes and the wishes of your family far outweighed the wishes of everyone else to get me talking about it. I just wanted to, everyone to know that. Yeah.
But, since then, and that's now, a couple of years ago, I still love what I do.
That's great. Well, I was going to say, we'll definitely finish on a positive, Jonathan. 2024. I know you've been out and about. How many times you've been in Germany this year?
Well, again, I don't want my wife to hear this, but I think it's maybe 9 times, something like that. For those that don't know, driving's my passion, and I don't know, but I just sadly too often hear about people getting unwell, the big C coming along, and various things that impact us. And I'm going to be 59 next week, and I think it's just getting that balance in life right. And Paul, you're a great advocate for that. You've got, you know, I think you win the contest, the boys with the most toys. My toy is just a car, but I love driving. And I this year I took a car to Germany and I left it out there, and I did something like 5,000 miles driving around the Nürburgring, and I had customers out there, and we sponsored some events there, and it's been an absolutely brilliant year, and I love it, and I don't regret it. My wife keeps asking me how much I've spent. Someone's once said to me, "You're best not to add it up." But it's been a great year, and in doing that, again, still doing the watches, not tied down to a stone with watches, but just going out there doing things. And it's been a great year. And 2024, in fact, my wife asked me that this morning, said, "Will you be doing this again next year?" I hope so. I hope so. As long as, you know, as long as the business is still good, we can still keep doing what we're doing. Yeah, absolutely. It's just getting that balance, isn't it?
Brilliant. Jonathan, you are an absolutely wonderful advert for the watch community, the pre-owned watch market. I'm not, this is what I say, I can't call people like you a grey market. There's nothing grey about what you guys do. You're professionals, apart from the hair. Yeah, absolutely. But listen, mate, you know, as I say, you're a shining light and a shining star for everyone out there. That is why you have been, always have been, and will always remain one of my trusted dealers. Guys, you can give Jonathan a call at Edinburgh Watch Company. You will be dealing with the man himself, who I can promise you will give you a 6-star service in every way that you could possibly imagine. Mate, it's been wonderful. Why has it been so long since we caught up?
I don't know. We're busy guys here.
I need to get myself up to Edinburgh before long. I'm going to come and see you before long, mate. But I'm going to wait until the weather improves a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, look, thank you for having me, and love to all the watch community. It's still great fun. Still loving what we do. And yeah, let's look forward to the next few months leading up to Christmas, and hopefully a lovely new collection coming from Rolex next year and all the other brands to, you know, keep us all amused in our love of watches. But no, take care.
Thanks, mate. All the best. Cheers, Jonathan.
Bye.